2010. A 7.0 earthquake rocks Port-au-Prince, Haiti. 33 Chilean miners were trapped for over 2 months before being rescued. WikiLeaks dumps hundreds of thousands of documents on the US military. Apple rolled out the first iPad. Lady Gaga dressed up as Beat. The Walking Dead started its epic run. And Christopher Nolan turned our world upside down with Inception. The Hurt Locker wins Best Picture. Lady A wins Song of the Year with Need You Now. The Giants won their first World Series in San Francisco. Drew Brees leads the Saints to the first Super Bowl. The Lakers go back-to-back in a thriller against Boston. The Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. And Spain won the World Cup in South Africa, where we all got to learn what vuvuzelas are. 2010 was a mixed year in the theme park industry. The world was starting to come out of the Great Recession, and we saw some promising additions. But it was clear that we were still in hard times, and it was anything but smooth sailing. These are the events that transformed the theme park industry from 2010. Not every story from 2010 was top 10 worthy. Here are the ones that missed the cut. And now for the top 10. March 16th, 2010. Paramount Parks announces their intention to build a major new park in Spain. They were targeting the region of Murcia, taking advantage of the great climate to compete with Disneyland Paris. April 7th, 2010. Sun Capital Management Corporation, a property fund operator out of Japan, announced it was trying to secure $1.5 billion to open a Paramount Park in Osaka. Paramount Parks broke into the industry in 1992, buying all of the King's Entertainment parks in North America. But by 2006, the parks were under the CBS Corporation and they wanted out. They didn't see the potential for growth in North America, but they did see the parks growing much faster overseas. They were aggressive, trying to get these parks open in Spain and Japan, but in the end, neither of them worked out. The park in Murcia had construction start and stop over the years. The park in Osaka was scrapped because of cost. Paramount saw the potential, but they found the road from planning to ribbon cutting was full of obstacles, and the timing economically wasn't ideal either. Late in 2009, Cedar Fair made an agreement with Apollo Global Management. Apollo would buy Cedar Fair for $11.50 per share and take the company private. This would be about a $2.4 billion transaction, including a cash payment of $635 million, and assuming all of Cedar Fair's $1.7 billion in debt. Cedar Fair needed 2/3 of the shareholders to agree to the sale, and they found that to be a major problem. April 6, 2010. The Apollo deal was called off as Cedar Fair could not secure the votes to make the deal happen. Cedar Fair had to pay Apollo $6.5 million to reimburse them for their expenses. Cedar Fair tried to sell California's Great America the next year, and that deal fell through also. Dick Kinzel would step down as CEO not long after, and the Matt We Met era began. Despite the turmoil coming out of the Great Recession, Cedar Fair remains unsold and has rebounded nicely, a model of stability in the industry. While Cedar Fair was looking around to unload their growing debt, Six Flags was in full-fledged Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They had already unloaded several parks in the years prior, and now they were facing a tipping point with Kentucky Kingdom. February 4th, 2010. Six Flags announces the park will not reopen for the season. They had to lease the park from the Kentucky State Fair Board, and amid their bankruptcy, they were looking to amend their lease and the two sides could not reach an agreement. This set into motion more negotiations, where Six Flags got to retain ownership of one ride of their choice, this being Roadrunner Express, and they moved that to Six Flags New England the next year. The board paid Six Flags over $5 million to buy out their stake in the park as well as the property rights. Everything except Roadrunner Express now belonged to the board. Luckily, just 3 months after Six Flags' announcement, former owner Ed Hart formed the Kentucky Kingdom Redevelopment Company, trying everything they could to reopen the park. Negotiations with the Kentucky State Fair Board were rocky. Deals were off and on for the next 4 years, but in the end, Ed Hart succeeded, and after 4 years of sitting dormant, Kentucky Kingdom was back open by 2014. April 15th, 2008. Hard Rock Park opens in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a music-themed amusement park. By September, the park lost a major investor and they closed early for the season, filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, later changed to Chapter 7. The park was bought by FPI MB Entertainment for $25 million, but as part of the court agreement, they had to rebrand the park. It spent the 2009 season as Freestyle Music Park, opting to drop the Hard Rock name to separate the park from its failed first year. During that second season, the park faced multiple lawsuits from its creditors, and FPI was scrambling to line up new investors to pay their debts. Once again, the park was feeling the pinch of the bad economy and there wasn't as much money to go around. In February 2010, FPI announced the park would not reopen on schedule for the next month. The park could not reopen until the investors allowed FPI to pay off their debts, and the park had no way to do it by itself. The lawsuits continued to rain down on the park as it remained closed. The park's entire board of directors had resigned by August 2010, except for one that was tasked with selling the park. There were efforts to reopen the park through 2013, but by the end of the year, the effort shifted to start selling off the rides. As the park's former VP of Entertainment, Martin Durham, said, the biggest culprit was the recession that hit right when the park opened. Holiday World opened in 1946 as Santa Claus Land. This was conceived by Lewis Cook. He wanted to provide a place where kids could visit Santa year-round in the town of Santa Claus, Indiana. This slowly grew into an amusement park, now under the ownership of Lewis Cook's son, Bill. He oversaw the transformation of the park from Santa Claus Land to Holiday World, celebrating more than just Christmas, and adding 9 new rides in 1984. But the park really took off under the leadership of Bill's son, Will. He oversaw the addition of Splash and Safari, one of the highest-rated water parks in the country, as well as the introduction of major roller coasters. Under Will Cook, the park built 3 award-winning wooden coasters, the Raven, the Legend, and the Voyage. He was also responsible for the world's tallest water ride, Pilgrim's Plunge, and the world's longest water coaster, Wildebeest. He also stressed cleanliness and friendliness to his employees, and the policy of free soft drinks in the park. June 13th, 2010. At the age of 48, Will Cook passed away at his home. He suffered from type 1 diabetes, and that was believed to be the cause of death. Later in the year, during the IAAPA Expo, Will Cook was inducted to the Theme Park Hall of Fame. Will's younger brother, Dan, would assume his role as president, but he had big shoes to fill. Will Cook transformed Holiday World into a destination. November 4th, 2010. Formula Rossa opens with Ferrari World Abu Dhabi. Standing 171 feet tall, covering over 6,500 feet of track, this was a very impressive coaster, but the highlight of the ride would be its speed. Using a hydraulic launch, Intamin was able to get this ride up to 149.1 miles per hour, shattering the existing speed record by over 20 miles per hour. Ferrari World was a brand new park looking to make its mark in the industry, and given the sports car theme of the park, it seemed appropriate to attack this record, and not only break it, but make it almost unreachable. Ferrari World is mostly indoors, but this shoots you into the Abu Dhabi heat so fast, riders are required to wear safety goggles. This was a last stand for the Intamin Accelerator coaster, the hydraulic launch falling out of style in favor of the LSM launches, but safe to say, it went out with a bang. Going all the way back to 2003, Disney and Universal were sparring for the rights for the Harry Potter franchise. J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers had very stringent terms, so even though they had a letter of intent with Disney by 2004, Disney had to pull out. This opened the door for Universal, and by 2007, rumors started to surface about a Harry Potter replacement for the Lost Continent, the area of Islands of Adventure that was home to dueling dragons. On May 31st, 2007, it was official. Harry Potter would be invading the Universal Orlando Resort. June 18th, 2010. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter opens at Islands of Adventure, a recreation of Hogsmeade. This featured 3 rides, 2 of them rebranded, this being Flight of the Hippogriff and Dragon Challenge, retrofit to adapt to the new theme, as well as the flagship ride of the new area, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. The popularity of the Harry Potter franchise, along with the quality of the area and the rides, that led Universal to replicate the Wizarding World in Japan, Hollywood, and Beijing, as well as add Diagon Alley to Universal Studios Florida. This was another Harry Potter-themed land at Islands of Adventure's sister park, the 2 lands connected by the Hogwarts Express. Shortly after, Cedar Fair took over the Paramount parks in 2006. It was clear they had big plans for their new acquisitions. Canada's Wonderland and Kings Island got B&M hypers in the 2 years prior to 2010, and Cedar Fair turned their sights to two of their other new parks, Carowinds and Kings Dominion. Using the Dale Earnhardt Intimidator theme for both, they would give Carowinds a B&M hyper as well. This went very smoothly. The management at Carowinds said B&M was a wonderful company to work with. Intimidator became their most popular ride. Over at Kings Dominion, they went a different direction, with Busch Gardens Williamsburg just an hour away. Sporting the B&M hyper Apollo's Chariot, Cedar Fair turned to Intamin to build a Giga Coaster, just like the one they bought 10 years prior at Cedar Point. Intimidator 305 would be an ultra-intense, low-to-the-ground speed machine, in contrast with the graceful airtime machine Intimidator. The first turn after the 300-foot drop was pulling such high positive Gs, it was causing riders to black out. Intamin had to install trim brakes on the first drop to cut down on the speed, and in the off-season, they reprofiled the first turn to make it less intense. Still, Intimidator 305 has never enjoyed the success of Intimidator, being way too intense for a lot of the general public. This would be Kings Dominion's last new coaster until 2018, while Carowinds has been getting significant major additions ever since, including a Giga of their own, although this one was also built by B&M. The better treatment for Carowinds over Kings Dominion actually comes down to tax incentives, not the performance of these two coasters. But this was a big fork in the road for Cedar Fair when it came to B&M versus Intamin. They have continued to use B&M for their major new projects over the last decade, and Intimidator 305 was their final new Intamin. February 24th, 2010. In front of an audience at the Dine with Shamu show at SeaWorld Orlando, senior trainer Don Brancheau was performing with the orca named Tilikum. At the end of the show, Tilikum pulled her into the water, and despite the SeaWorld employees' best efforts, Tilikum would not let her go for 45 minutes. The autopsy determined she died of drowning and blunt force trauma. SeaWorld ordered all their trainers to stay out of the pool with any orca, and later that year, OSHA solidified that ban, even when SeaWorld wanted it lifted. Legal battles would follow over the next few years, and the 2013 film Blackfish gave the issue some mainstream appeal. The documentary was focused on the life of Tilikum, responsible for 3 deaths in his life, with Don Brancheau being the focal point in the film. The public backlash led SeaWorld to make sweeping changes over the last 10 years, including making their orca shows more educational, stopping their orca breeding program, and moving more toward thrill rides and roller coasters to draw in their audience. Ever since Premier Parks bought Six Flags from Time Warner in 1998, the chain had been super aggressive. They had been acquiring parks at home and overseas. They had been adding new coasters to all their parks every year, sometimes adding 2, 3, or 4 coasters to a single park in 1 year. All that extravagance over a 5-year span started falling apart by 2004. The chain slowed down a lot through 2008, adding fewer and smaller rides and selling off some of their smaller parks. And once the economy crashed, the chain had no choice but to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2009. April 10th, 2010. The company's bondholders reached a reorganization plan. Junior bondholders would take control of the company, senior bondholders would be paid in cash, and the bankruptcy judge approved this plan. Chairman of the board Dan Snyder was ousted. CEO Mark Shapiro handed his post over to Al Weber Jr. on an interim basis, and he would cede that position to Jim Reed Anderson on August 13th. The corporate headquarters would be moved from New York City to Grand Prairie, Texas. All existing stock would be obsolete, and new stock would be issued on the New York Stock Exchange. With all the uncertainty surrounding Six Flags during the depths of their financial problems, they were never sold, they were never absorbed. They just took a completely different approach. They would try their hand at giving every park something small every year. They would stop trying to acquire so many new parks, though in 2018, they did regain operations of Darien Lake and Frontier City. When they re-emerged from bankruptcy, they became the discount chain. Their prices would be much lower than Cedar Fair, SeaWorld, Disney, and Universal, but they would provide a lower quality product. Less theming, more in-park ads, small cloned rides and coasters. This would continue for over a decade, but under new CEO Salim Basoul, he's trying to change their image to attract a new audience. Regardless of what happens, Six Flags' ability to emerge from bankruptcy in 2010 is my most impactful story of the year. That's all I have for 2010. Let me know what you think of these stories, if there are any other stories that I should have mentioned, and if you have any theme park memories from 2010. For me, I wasn't really an enthusiast at this point, so I didn't travel anywhere to ride coasters. I was in grad school and still working at Magic Mountain, and the culture of the park and some of the policies for employees were changing quickly. The one I remember most was no more free lunch for food service workers. This had been in place ever since I started in 2003. Now, they wanted $1 from each employee. With the economy as bad as it was, Six Flags was no longer desperate to find anyone to work there. They now had more candidates than jobs to fill. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with other years in this series. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-road footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.